Okay, welcome to Coffee Conversations. My name is Heidi Ellsworth, and I'm here with my co-host,
Megan Ellsworth. Hello, everyone.
So fun. We are co-hosting this special edition of Coffee Conversations. We are so excited to celebrate Pride Month, Pride Month in roofing. This is momentous. I'm just almost beside myself. I can't say how cool this is going to be today. But before we get started, as always, we need to talk a little bit about housekeeping. So we will be recording this. It will be available on demand. Please share it out to your friends, family, neighbors, whoever you want, and definitely everyone in the roofing industry. This topic is so important, and we want everyone to be a part of it, a part of the conversation. So also, we want you to be part of the conversation today. This is about everyone talking. So in the chat or in the Q&A, whatever you like, leave your questions, leave your comments. If you want to ask questions, we'll ask them to the panel. We'll talk through it. So this is all about you and all about the Q&A. We'll all be on that chat, and Megan and I will be working through this hour with our very special guests. And before I introduce them, we do want to thank our sponsor. So Johns Manville is our sponsor today. And talk about a leader, yes, a leader in the industry, a leader in the diversity movement. They have been, I just have to say, from the very beginning involved with National Women in Roofing. They walk the talk. It's such an amazing company, and I am so thankful for them as sponsors today and for their leadership. I've been thinking about this all week. The leadership of Johns Manville to be a sponsor on today's Coffee Conversation celebrating Pride Month just speaks volumes. And so we are very proud to have them today. And in fact, one of our panelists is Zeb Sukle, sorry, I just messed up your name, Zeb. And she is with Johns Manville. So Zeb, I'm going to have you introduce yourself, say your last name the right way, and tell us a little bit about yourself. And then can you talk a little bit about Johns Manville and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Sukle. I'm the technical director here at Johns Manville Roofing Systems Division. Been in the roofing industry 11 years. And have been openly out and gay since I was 20. So kudos to JM and leading in this effort and having me on today and with you guys. So JM is I think one of the leaders in the commercial roofing industry. We are basic in essentially all membrane categories. We like to think that we have something for everybody. And, you know, I would just like to say it's a great place to be, great place to work. Yeah.
I love it. And you know what? There's just something so cool about going to downtown Denver and seeing that Johns Manville on that building and then going upstairs. So Zeb, thank you for being here today. And again, thank you to Johns Manville. I want to introduce our next panelist, and that is Jess Cress with SRS. Jess, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you and SRS.
Hi, my name is Jess Cress, and I am the Assistant Branch Manager here at Superior Distribution in Norcross, Georgia. I am also the DEI co-chair for National Women in Roofing. Been in the industry for a little over 10 years. Got started pretty young. And I would say that I came out, I was kind of drug out at like 12, 13. So, you know, just living the life. About 20 years strong now.
Love it. Love it. Jess, we're so happy to have you here. And again, I just want to say all of the companies, SRS, again, a huge leader in diversity and inclusion. So thank you so much. And I would like to introduce Maureen Greeves with Tremco and WTI. Maureen, welcome. I think welcome back. We've done so many things together, I'm not sure, but introduce yourself, please, and talk a little bit about you and Tremco.
Yeah, you bet. First, I wanted to say thank you to Roofers Coffee Shop and Heidi and Megan for putting this on today. It's a real honor to be a part of this panel. So I appreciate that, your support, both professionally and personally, for sure. And also thanks to Johns Manville for supporting this and sponsoring this coffee conversation. It's fantastic. So I am Maureen Greeves. I work with Tremco Roofing in Cleveland, Ohio, born and raised here. And I've been in the roofing industry since 2009, held various positions within, Tremco and WTI, and work with National Women in Roofing as the education chair, also active in the Cleveland Council for National Women in Roofing. And my wife and I have been together since 2000, so 22 years. And I started a little bit later in my coming out process. So kudos to Jess and to Zeb. But it took me a little bit later, closer to my 30s, to get it all sorted out and figured out, and to start, embracing it and coming out. So my journey was a little bit different, a little bit longer, but happy to be where I'm at now. So thank you for having us.
That's awesome. Thank you, Maureen. Thank you so much. And I want to introduce my co-host, who you all know. She is the award-winning podcast producer for Roofers Coffee Shop. But Megan, I would like you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about you.
Yes, hello everyone. Very glad to be co-hosting today. My name is Megan Ellsworth, and I am the award-winning podcast producer at Roofers Coffee Shop. And yes, I came out when I was about 20 or so, and have been out ever since. And yeah, and so I wanted to do a little brief history of Pride Month in case there were people on here that didn't know what Pride Month was, or how it got started. So it started actually by a riot called the Stonewall Riot on June 28th, 1969. The Stonewall Inn was a prominent gay bar in Greenwich Village in New York City, and was stormed by police in a homophobic raid. And so all these people kind of just fought back for their rights, basically. And it was really started by Marsha P. Johnson, who was a Black transgender woman that started the movement really in full. And then the following year, after the Stonewall riots, organizers really wanted to build on the spirit of resistance and decided to organize a march to Central Park, and adopted the theme of gay pride as a counterpoint to the prevailing attitude of shame towards the gay community at the time. So that was about 1970. That march down Christopher Street from the Stonewall into Central Park soon expanded to other cities, with more and more joining every year into what we now know as Pride Month, which is June. And now it's a massive celebration in being proud of who you are. And it's really important to remember who started it, and that we still fight for those people. So that is the brief history of Pride Month.
I love it. Megan, thank you. And thank you. I am so proud of Megan, and we're
very happy to be doing this.
9 minutes in, Heidi, 9 minutes in.
I really thought I was going to do better than that. So, okay. So let's go now, Megan. I would love for us to, with our guests, talk about the experience within roofing, because I think that's really important. And this is what we're trying to bring to the forefront, and the overall inclusion. So Zeb, let's start with you. Can you kind of just share your experience with, in the roofing industry, Johns Manville, just your acceptance?
I would say that within roofing, within the roofing industry, they've really welcomed and accepted me. It was never a question when I came into Johns Manville about my sexual orientation. That was not something that was really discussed or looked at, right? which was refreshing for that period of time. Um, and then in general, of course, I had apprehensions coming into the roofing industry because, you know, I had worked in the construction industry, you know, as I worked my way through college, right? And it's a bit rough, you know, at times, or at least perceived to be. But you know, in all honesty, the roofing community has embraced me. Organizations such as SPRI and PIMA, you know, I've sat on the board of both of those associations, and you know, you couldn't ask for a better group of people to be mentored by within the organization. So, you know, it's surprising, and I tell people that roofing is, you know, commercial roofing and roofing in general is a really good place to be. It's a hidden gem from a you know, a career opportunity standpoint. You know, you're always going to find people that are outliers. I believe you're going to see that, right? I'm not saying it's 100% perfect. I think we still have work to do. But in, you know, the vast majority of people I have met in this industry are very receptive to me.
That, yes. And that, you know, we see all sides of it because we all know that there's to everyone who's not, you know, who's different, a woman or ethnic or LGBTQ, there are comments, there are things that go on, but the whole is what it's so great to be able to celebrate the good parts. And that's where all the talent is going to be, but it's not always so. But let's keep going. Jess, can you share, how's your experience? I know it's a little bit different in the South, so let's talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that my experience in the industry differed greatly depending on how I looked, truthfully. If I look like this, everyone's pretty cool. You know, I look like a normal girl should look. Long hair, regular clothes, not a big deal. There was a time and a stint in my life where I went through this huge pride phase, really short hair, definitely looked like a 12-year-old little boy for about 2 whole years. But that was not perceived as well. Like, it was definitely a different response for sure. But as far as, and I think as I get older, maybe, you know, my response changes a good bit as well. So maybe that has something to do with it. But the industry as a whole has been quite accepting, and a lot of my contacts are in the Western area anyways. So we're good so far.
Great. We have a little bit of a little ways to go, that's for sure. But we're getting there. Maureen, how about you?
You know, Heidi, my experience in the roofing industry has been very positive. I've have not had a lot of challenges, and I think Jess and Zeb, I think we touched on this a little bit when we were doing some of our discussions before this call. Was, you know, sometimes we can look the part, right? So, you know, we can put on the makeup and do our hair and kind of fit in, and you choose when you want to share your authentic self and when you don't. And you can, you know, when I started in the industry, all my conversations about the weekend were about, we had a lot of fun, or, oh, we did this or we did that, you know. And now fast forward to today, and yeah, my wife and I spent the whole day at sprying on a softball field, you know. So it's a lot different conversation. But the roofing industry is filled with a bunch of hardworking people who, you know, embrace hard work and work ethic and innovation. And, you know, from my experience, they've been really open and welcoming. So it's been a positive experience.
Megan, how about you from a Gen Z? How's your experience?
Yeah, well, thank you all for sharing, first of all, as well. And it's very enlightening to, you know, hear your experiences in this industry. Mine, Has been great as well. Yeah, I feel like sometimes I feel like roofing royalty because of my mom, um, and so I have never, I've always felt very accepted in the industry, and loved. And I also feel very allowed to push the boundary, and I'm so glad we're doing this today. And I feel safe in doing so, which is really, really cool. And I think it can be a very conservative industry when you look at it in certain aspects. And it's cool that we're doing this and that I get to be a part of it, even just the smallest of ways. So I think the roofing industry has a long ways to go, but it's really sweet to see so many things like the DEI initiative, with National Women Roofing and today. And yeah, so I think that my experience has been really similar to these ladies.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about the future. Let's talk about what we can keep doing. So, Maureen, you and I talked before as we were kind of doing this, and you brought up some great points about, let's get down to brass tacks, right? Benefits. What's happening when you're looking in the companies? Are they really, a lot of people nowadays will say things, but then when you actually get there, it's like, well, why don't we have the same benefits or the same pay or the same everything else? So maybe talk a little bit about that. Start us out on that, Maureen.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I think the things that we talked about in the beginning were, how do we attract more talent to the industry? How do we get more of the Gen Z, group comfortable with commercial roofing and skilled trades? And I look at it from a different perspective. Someone who is, mid 50s and has kids and a wife and responsibilities. If I was going to start looking for a job, I would be old school and be going to their website, maybe looking at their EEO policy. Does it have, sexual orientation, gender identification or expression right in that? Can I find that easily? Can I look to see if that, and do I have equal representation in not only policy, but benefits, right? So we're talking about extending infertility treatments. We're talking about adoption support, foster care support and assistance, in vitro infertility treatment, things like that, that would, be extended not only to different sex spouses, but same-sex couples, whether they're spouses or domestic partners, right? So those are definitely things I would also be looking for, not only policy and benefits, but also what kind of training, what kind of branding do you have on your website? Is there a diversity section? Can I find it easily? Can I go, what is the position there? So those are definitely things. I think when I started here, I came from a different industry and started in 2009. And at the time, my wife and I had two little ones, right? So we had come from a company that was very open and welcoming. Not to say that my company now wasn't, but we changed, right? So I had benefits with my own company when I came here. We did not. So I had my benefits, and we had to figure some things out in the background to take care of my family that way. But, things changed when we were allowed to get married in 2015. So from 2009 to 2015, we made it work. But then in 2015, in a very non-romantic way, I called my wife and said, we're going to get married. And this is why. And it was like, because we now have access to benefits. And so it was the least romantic proposal ever, looking back on it. And if there's something I could do over again, I probably would do that, right? But it got us, and that was a really exciting time. So we were able to have benefits, and it just makes a huge difference, right? In how you feel about your community and how you feel about your company, and how secure you feel. So those are some things I think that they're super important.
Yeah, I think, and I'm reading the comments over here, and we're going to get to some of them because you're kind of making me all teary again. And then I'm going to, I told Maureen I wouldn't cry. And so, but I think we need to keep going on that a little bit. Zeb, what have you found with benefits and also just, as trying to, with the family? I mean, I think that's just it's so important to all of us.
Yeah. When I first started my career, I was with a company that was based in California. So at the time, they were pretty, their benefits were pretty progressive for that period of time, right? They had domestic partner benefits in a period that it was kind of a little different, but they did, which was exciting. And then I went and moved on to a different company. And they were just at the cusp of it was just kind of at the period where it was shifting over to really having domestic partner benefits, but still not, like a lot of companies weren't. And so navigating that terrain. And I remember working with our HR person at the time to start up domestic partner benefits at the time, because marriage wasn't legal. And unfortunately it was the day that I gave my resignation with that company that they came out with domestic partner benefits. It wasn't the reason I left. And I was grateful to have pushed them in the right direction to at least get that going. But it was a challenge during that period of time, navigating that environment. And of course, by the time I came to JM, that was already something that was done and in place at that period of time.
Yeah, kudos, yay that JM had that in place. Jess, how about you?
I'll say truthfully, like I really didn't have to navigate a ton of benefit things. I mean, I've only very recently gotten super settled down and married, and we have kids, and those things are now important, but I didn't really have to navigate through the not being able to get married and the benefits stuff. I did, however, have my HR person not long ago, not at this company, but another one, ask me if gay marriage was even legal in the state of Georgia. And that was only about like 2 years ago. So, benefits necessarily I haven't dealt with much, but maybe management questioning might be a little bit of a different conversation.
How did you handle that, Jess?
I mean, we're actually pretty close, so I kind of laughed. I was like, yeah, man, like it was a whole national thing. She's like, what?
Yeah, where were you?
Like 2015, things went down. She's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. Not that big of a deal. It was pretty funny actually, but had it not been her, it might have been a bit of a different situation for sure.
I love it.
Totally. That also just goes to show, like, if you're not in the realm, if it's not affecting you, maybe you don't know, and that's okay. But that is pretty funny. We have a question came in, excuse me, from Alice Reynolds. What are some ways that heterosexual, straight, cis people can be an ally for LGBTQ people in the workplace and outside of the workplace? So do any of you want to start with that one?
I'll take it. I'll start. I think being an ally is basically, I mean, for me, I would want you to just treat me exactly how you treat everyone else. And then don't be afraid to ask about my life, and don't be afraid to talk about my life in front of our colleagues or peers. My wife and my children are exactly the same as Bob's wife and his kids. I mean, it's not much different. So I would say, as far as being an ally, it's just treating me the same. I just want to be treated the same. And then I think beyond that, it would be Public representation is a big deal. Like I've had to deal with very recently, like one of my children's best friends was not allowed to come spend the night at our house because there's 2 women in the home. So just like treating other people the same as well. Like if you have a child that has a best friend who does have gay, lesbian, queer, trans parents, like don't think any differently of them. Like treat everyone exactly the same. I think beyond and at work, if you treat everyone like the same person, that is the best possible way to be an ally.
I completely agree with Jess. I mean, that's at the core of it is that, you know, just don't look at us any different and treat us with respect and represent, right? Us, help too.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. I think, you know, some other things to think about too, or if you really want to be an ally, right, is to educate yourself a little bit. In 2020 was the first time we were protected against not being fired. 2020, that was just 2 years ago, right? So before that, it would be fine to fire me or Zeb or Jess because of our orientation and have that not be federally challenged. So that was just 2 years ago. I think there's a ways to go. If we had not gotten the marriage bill passed in 2015, my life would look a lot different. And we have kids. I was able to adopt those, my own children, adopting them, my own children, just so I wouldn't be a legal stranger, you know. And I think people don't maybe realize that side of it, right? So just educating yourself and being an ally and being advocate for our rights and to continue to fight for those rights is important. You know, how you talk about families, every family looks different. How you talk about using words. You know, I think in school we've had a couple things that have happened, even though it's one of the most open and welcoming communities, we've still had some issues. And, you know, I think one of the biggest things that my kids talk about is just how exhausting it is to hear the word gay used in such a negative connotation, right, on a daily basis, and to not have enough people stand up and say, you know, that's not okay. So, you know, just educating, being an ally, getting engaged in kind of some of the things that are still struggles is really, really a good way to be impactful.
You know, I have to say, Maureen, I remember the first time we really sat down and had dinner and really hung out and became the friends we are today. And I can remember just that conversation of you sharing stories about your wife and your kids and me sharing stories about Tim and Megan and James. And it was, you know, I don't think you and I even thought about it twice. It was just not a big deal, but that is something that needs across the board. And we had some great things that people talked about in National Women in Roofing, and then I've heard at different things, but that is when you hear something that's against anybody, whether it's a different nationality, ethnicity, whatever, stand up and correct that person. Stand up and say something like, that's, you know, sorry if that was a okay terminology 20 years ago, it's not okay. And that sometimes it's hard for people to do, but I think it's so important. I love that, standing up, and please everyone vote. Vote, man, vote. We won't get into politics today too much, but man, we've got to vote. That is so important.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Everyone, we need to vote. Megan, I would love for you to start the conversation on pronouns, because I'm going to tell everybody out there right now, if there is something that frustrates Megan more than anything in the world, is trying to explain pronouns to her mom and dad. And so I'm going to put myself out there as the doofus, and that I'm learning and I'm open to trying to figure this all out, but I have figured it out. I'm making it a little bit less, although sometimes I still say things wrong and Megan's like, Mom. And so she educates me on a regular basis. I would love for you to kind of start that conversation and hear from everybody, you know, how do we with different ages and this next generation is so, they've got it. How do we be respectful with our terminologies and our vocabularies?
Yeah, totally. So one thing that is really cool that, your company can implement is putting pronouns in your email signature. So, and I should have done it on our little name tags on Zoom
yeah.
here. You could put it, next to your name, she, her, hers, he, him, they, them, sie, them, zir. There's all sorts of different pronouns and gender identities that people take up, and that's who they are. So, and someone can be very female presenting and use they, them pronouns. Someone can be male presenting and use she, her pronouns, and vice versa. There's all sorts of different ways people can present their gender identity, and that is different from their sexual orientation, which is something that Mom gets a little confused about. But
getting there.
They're two different things. Sexual orientation, obviously is who you're attracted to, what kind of person, what, whatever their dilly bob is. And gender identity is how you represent yourself within a gender, and it can be different from the one you were assigned at birth. It can be the same, it can be neutral, it can be gender fluid, which would maybe fall under the umbrella of they, them pronouns. Non-binary would also fall under the umbrella of they, them pronouns. And I actually identify with they, them pronouns as well as she, her. And I think something else that you can just start to implement in your everyday life is, if you are unclear on someone's pronouns, just ask. It is so okay. People rather have you ask and learn and be respectful and kind in that manner than misgendering them and using the wrong pronouns, because that can be really upsetting for someone and really triggering and can set them back. And really what everyone wants is just to be treated like they would treat someone else. So it's like the golden rule, right? That we're all taught in kindergarten: just be nice, treat everyone like you want to be treated. If you are a cis person, like you identify with the gender that was assigned to you at birth, that is so awesome. Imagine if someone were to use the wrong pronouns for you. That'd be like, what? I'm obviously a woman, like why would you use he, him for me? But so imagine, put yourself in their shoes. And so yeah, just ask. It's really not hard. Just say, hey, what are your pronouns? I want to use the right ones. And I'm sure that'll, brighten their day.
So Zeb, let's start with you. I mean, as we're kind of, I think this is also, we're learning from the younger generation as this comes forward. How has this been for you? Yeah.
I will say that I had to do some research on pronouns prior to our conversation, because I'm not as versed in them, right? And I would say that, in my research, I certainly identify as she, her, them, right? And I could see how, some of the examples that I read through, how for anybody, even I remember younger, or when I had short hair, that people, mistook me for he, right? At a period of time. So I can see where this is, it's super important, and what a very easy way for us to just address the problem.
Totally. And Ellen Thorpe just put in here, my teens tell me that it's super common when they meet someone to ask, what is your name? What are your pronouns? So true. Especially, I'm constantly surrounded by creatives, musicians, and queer people all the time. And that is common practice. Hi, nice to meet you. What are your preferred pronouns? Just in case. You don't ever want to assume.
Yeah. Maureen, Jess, any thoughts on that? Because I do want to kind of read some of these. We have all kinds of thoughts, but I want to make sure on the pronouns. Maureen?
Well, I mean, it's totally embarrassing, right? I'm asking people to be an ally and do their research, and I'm with you, Zeb. I was like, "Whoa, I need to definitely get more educated on this and pay more attention." Right? As a as a Gen X, I definitely need to get a little bit more up to the times. But yeah, thank you, Megan. Right, that's super helpful.
We know who to talk to. You can all talk to her.
Yes.
She puts
Now
up with me all the
have
time.
my-
So yeah.
Right now, I have my connection. I'll be like,
Yeah.
okay, Megan.
I would say for me, pronouns are like a big deal. Like I struggled for a really long time not knowing if I was trans or not because my expression is so fluid. Like it depends on what day it is. I can be a pretty little princess needing tons of attention, or I got this done. I don't need your help. Like real manly. Like so. It took a long time for me to figure that out, and then I would say around here, pronouns aren't necessarily a thing yet. Like they're like, huh? But the introduction of them honestly kind of gave me a way to be like, all right, so it's completely normal to not have any idea. And today I want to be a boy, and tomorrow I want to be a girl, and it's fine. Like nobody really cares. I mean, I don't know. So I would say my pronouns I have stuck with as generic and non one way or another as I could possibly get with EA heirs. Like you can call me a girl, I'm not gonna get upset. You can call me she, he, whatever. Just because I don't know the truth for that day either, honestly. So I mean,
Totally.
I
how
love
much
that, Jess.
you to know if I don't. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And just like asking, like, how are you feeling today, Jess? What do you want me to use? I'll do whatever. I love
think
that.
that's so real. I want to read this one comment because I think this is an awesome comment from John Kenny. John, thank you so much for being on today. And it said, Megan, thank you. Your explanation is the first one that actually made sense to me. And now I understand what the pronouns are. So John, for those who don't know John Kenny, he's also a Gen Xer and with Cottony Consulting, absolutely an awesome ally. But it is a generation thing, not knowing what they are. Glad to learn something new today. That is awesome.
Yeah. Yes. Gender is a construct. It's fake. We made it up. Without humans, there would be no gender. So, just ask and be cool. It's so simple.
Okay, so speaking of asking, Megan, we had a question. What is the Zy, him, thyself pronoun, or Zim? I think I said that wrong. Rachel, thank you for putting that there. Okay, Zim, him, Zim, self, pronoun usage.
Yes, Z, Zim, Zir.
Z, okay.
I think it's basically a more, it's a different version of they, them, their. Z, Zim, Zir. It's a lot of trans people like to use it. Those pronouns, and it's becoming more popular, I would say, in our culture right now. I don't know many people that use those pronouns, but I think it's going to be the next frontier, honestly. It's more gender fluid, more open than they, them, their, because I don't know, I don't actually know much about it, so I'm not going to try to teach about it. But yeah, everyone can go do the research on that one. It's basically just a different type of pronoun that is gender fluid, is my understanding. Yeah. And I think that's pretty cool.
That's cool.
And we did have another question come in. Are the pronouns correct? Are they, them pronouns correct? Wait, no, okay. Are the pronouns correct, they, them, somewhat fluid if you're not sure of another person's pronouns and unable to ask at the time? For example, if they aren't present and you're talking about them. And then this is from Alice, and she's currently pregnant. In parentheses, she says, I've been using they, them for my baby in my tummy because I don't know their gender. Love that. Yeah, I mean, I kind of naturally default to using they, them pronouns for people when I am unclear. on what pronouns they prefer. But again, that can be a little troublesome, just in if they don't prefer they them, you know. But I mean, I'm sure if it's in like a fleeting conversation or whatever, it's, you know, not going to be the end of the world or anything. But I think that is a safe way to talk about someone using pronouns when you're unclear of their pronouns.
I have to tell you, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I have had one conversation with a friend of mine who uses she, her, and is a transgender woman. And she said, you know, don't use they, them for me. I am a woman. I want people to use she, her for me. And when people, you know, don't know her and see her, they automatically sometimes just use they, them because they are unclear on what her pronouns would be. And she says that's, you know, she told me that was really upsetting for her. And so I guess it's, you know, it's a mixed bag, but
I think it elevates the reason or highlights the importance of asking, especially with the, you know, us Gen Xers, right? We've got to get into the groove and start asking on pronouns. Because I do think for people in that scenario with your friend makes a big difference her entire life, right? She was probably you know, she had to fight the battle. And once she got to a point where she was, you know, she was she, and she was embracing it and owning it, that to me, I can see where, you know, mistaking that, even if people are trying to do the right thing,
right,
it's still the wrong thing. It's still that identity that you have in yourself and how hard she's worked to get there.
mm-hmm.
That you have to, you know, respect
Mm-hmm.
from people.
Absolutely. So true. And Rachel Roble, I hope I said your last name correctly, just said, I've started to use the person's name when I'm not sure, which is totally awesome.
That's great.
Yeah,
I was just going
to use people's names instead of pronouns.
To be really honest and transparent out there, we have conversations like this in our family, right? And so many of you know my husband, Tim, and this totally blows his mind and he doesn't quite know what to do. And I said, all you have to do is be you and use the person's name. So Jess, whether you're feeling like a guy or a girl that day, I'm calling you Jess, because I call you Jess all the time. But that is kind of how I shared with Tim. I said, until all of us in this Gen X, just it's love. Lead with love and respect and just use the name. I agree so much with that. And then ask because you may ask some people who are older and they'll be like, what? They won't even know what you're talking about. So it's just still such a generational shift. I do want, go ahead. Yes.
No, you're fine. We talked a lot about pronouns. I think it's very, very important, and you guys can research it after the call, but gender and your pronouns aren't necessarily tied together either. Pronouns are definitely expression, mostly. It's a whole river, lots of currents, and you got to do a lot to get to the bottom of it. But I don't want people to get confused with gender and pronouns, that they're the exact same thing.
Yes, great point, Jess. Mm-hmm.
I do want to just point out here, I want to thank a couple people. Sarah Mueller from Florida. She says, you have a roofing alley here in Florida. Thank you all for your vulnerability and for sharing your stories. Thank you for hosting this RCS. Sarah, I've seen you on the Coffee Conversations before. Thank you so much. And thank you. We're so glad to have you as part of the community. And there's Mandy McIntyre is on here, Wendy Marvin, Jennifer Stone. We've got Ellen Thorpe. The executive director of National Women in Roofing, has had some amazing chats and comments in here. We probably can't read them all right now, but I just want to point them out and say thank you, everybody, for your leadership, for your thought. Leadership and what you've done in the industry is amazing. We do have a question that we were kind of wondering about whether to bring up, but of course, Wendy Marvin brought it up, so we're just going to say it and put it out here. She said, scary question. What's being discussed about the potential change in our laws? Will we be marching together soon? So, yeah, we even talked about this ahead of time, like, are we going to go there? But Jess, you said you started to say something. What's your thoughts?
I was going to say who and then not touching it. All I know is that if we do have to, that in 2022 we are probably the most banded together, most understanding of one another than we've probably ever been, with the most acceptance and outance that we've ever had. It would be the largest, most peaceful probably thing that you've ever seen.
Well, and you're the closest
And
to
very
Florida,
colorful.
Jess. Yeah, Jess, you're the closest to Florida, and we've talked about that in the past. So yeah, there's a lot going on down there. Seb, you were going to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to be aware of what's happening in the world today. This is my first, podcast and coming out publicly, right? And representing. There's a reason for that right now. I think that I hope that people have seen me through the industry, respect and know me for Zeb, but I'm not gonna say this is not a bit of a scary time for some people, including myself. And I can't even imagine children in today's world where this is occurring. It was hard when I was growing up, and that uncertainty. But we really have to think about the next generation, and what we can do, right? Reach our hand back, grab them, and move them forward. We're all part of that right now.
I tell you, as a mother, I worry all the time. And so I'm going to say it again, vote and come together. Maureen, any thoughts on that? Before we go we have a really special question here that I think we should say.
Oh, well, let's move on to special questions.
Okay. Well, it's somebody you know. So Lisa Garcia wanted to say thank you, especially to Jess. She said, thank you for what you said about feeling a different way every day. My 14-year-old son identifies as gay and is dating a trans boy. Sometimes his boyfriend comes over and is wearing makeup and acrylic nails, painted, etc. And I was so confused, but I definitely have a better understanding now. Thank you, Lisa. Jess, any thoughts?
No, I mean, I love that. The comment, truthfully, it just makes you feel like I could have never done that at 14. Like, I have a hard time doing that now. So it's good to see, good to hear.
Yeah, it's nice to see people, still expressing their true selves, even in a climate so intense as this one.
So Heidi and Megan, thank you for giving us a platform to tell those stories, right? And make an impact and a difference. That's part of it, is being able to get a platform to share some of these stories for connection.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It's good. So I'm going to take this even one step further. And we kind of talked about this before, but it's probably obvious. I'm going to state the obvious here, that this is a panel of all women. And so I want to make sure that we are reaching out to the gay community in whole, across the board. And that in the roofing industry, we are embracing this across the whole. We do not have any men, gay men or trans men on this panel today. I'm hoping by next year, maybe we will, and that we'll be able to embrace. So I want to talk about that, ability to really, as we're going to different trade shows. I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I just think it's so important to kind of end on this, is that as we're going to trade shows, as we're going to conferences, as we're doing our day-to-day business of really reaching out and being inclusive of everyone. I mean, we're talking today about LGBTQ, but a couple months ago, we had Black History Month. We are looking at so many different nationalities with the Latino community. How are we reaching out and really having these conversations and respecting people from all different cultures, from all different things? And how do we do that better when we're together? Because this is, as we all know, we're stepping out. And we're stepping out and talking about things that haven't been talked about before. It's just kind of like, don't say anything. So
Heidi,
yeah.
I got a couple things I've been thinking about this fall week, just thinking about the time we were going to spend together talking, and the fact that, we're all on here. There's no male representation on the call today. And, my experience is from a place where I'm in a corporate setting. I'm in an office. And, I've been out in the field a few times, but certainly not working in the field. And that's not my role. But, I think it's important. And I wanted to make sure that I said on the call today, 7% in general, 7% of the population, 20 million people identify as LGBTQ plus. And, that means, I guess, if you've got 15 employees, at least one of them is in that category, right? But I thought it was real important to say today on this call, since you've given us a chance to get our voice out there, to say to anyone who's working in the field and is out there doing that work, boots on the roof, day in, day out, on a crew, that we see you and we recognize you, and we want you to be able to feel comfortable and and be able to be your authentic self, whether you're in an office or if you're on the roof working production. So I think it's real important I would love next year, I agree, to not be here and in my place, have some of that other representation. So I wanted to just use this time to get out there and say, if anyone wants to call me, my phone is available, and call me and we can give you support. And we see you and we love you.
Yeah. And I think that brings up, I just to kind of speak to that a little bit more too. It is probably, it's in my perception, and this is just Zeb talking, it's always been much easier being gay and lesbian. It's been much more acceptable in the environment than being a gay man. I think they've had a struggle. Trans have fought the battle since day one, right? They've started this movement, and they're really, we need to support all of them. So I just think too, this is the first one, but I would love to see and hope that there's that representation in the coming years.
Love it. Jess, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think moving forward, we definitely, how you asked, how do we do better about everyone moving forward? I'm going to stick with my number one comment that I say all the time: talk to someone most unlike you as much as you can. And then definitely, I'm going to do a little shout out, but definitely pay attention to the NWIR socials. DEI is doing a lot of work, and we actually do have a male post coming out for Pride Month this month. So I'm actually really excited about that. Yeah, pay attention to it. We try to catch everybody that we can.
You and Ray and Mandy and Meredith do an amazing job on DEI. So, and with National Women in Roofing. And, I want to do a call out real quick to Amy Staska. Amy, thank you so much. I saw your question earlier about the benefits, and that you actually came out in order to get the benefits. And you just said great conversation. And, you're right here. Thank you for being here today. Yeah.
Also, Lorna Rojas said, someone mentioned about future generation. A few months ago, I heard about a 13-year-old's suicide case. Hard to think how he suffered before that fatal decision. I'm assuming that has to do with his, sexual orientation. And I wanted to share some stats really quick. 75% of LGBTQ teenagers report as feeling depressed or down most of the time, and 95% report as having trouble sleeping at night. LGBTQ youth of color, especially in transgender teenagers, experience unique challenges and elevated stress. And 50% of trans and gender expansive, I like that term, gender expansive youth, said that they can never use school restrooms that align with their gender identity. And more than 70% report feelings of worthlessness and hopelessness. So that just goes to show this conversation is so needed, and to keep going and fighting the good fight for the children that are children right now and will soon be adults. So thank you all, our panelists, for being here today and opening up this great conversation for the roofing industry.
So good. I want to say real quick, 2 things. Tyler, I want to say thank you. Tyler Kuhn said, great panel and discussion. I appreciate all of you and your stories, perspectives, and vulnerability. I want to tell you, thank you for being here. Thank you so much for being here. And I also want to recognize that we have all sides. We have parents of wonderful gay men and women. I was going to say men and women. I'm like, oh, that's not the right way to say it. So see, there I go again. But of all my loved ones. And we have, of course, our panelists and our gay community, but we also have parents, gay parents of their kids coming up. And so we have all sides of this. And I've been seeing all these comments along the way. And it's just, to me, beautiful that we're all here together having these conversations and celebrating Pride Month. So thank you. Thank you all. We are at the end of our show, and I didn't even cry another time, although I have to admit I'm a little teary. Maureen, Zeb, and Jess, thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And doing this.
Thanks for everything.
Thanks. Yay! I've got chills. Oh my gosh. So June, celebrate, welcome, reach out, take this, share it, and a huge thank you to Johns Manville. A huge thank you to Johns Manville for being the sponsor, for really making all this possible, and for being such a great role model in the industry. And as always, thank you to everyone who's on here. We've had huge amounts of people, huge amounts of comments. I think you guys are just amazing. Believe it or not, this is our last coffee conversations for this season. So, Megan and I, we really feel like this is a TV show. So we go on hiatus during the summer. It's awesome. And we'll start.
Can't wait for the next season to drop. This is exciting.
To drop. Yeah. So second Thursday of September, we'll be back with Coffee Conversations. But if you really miss us that much, which I hope you do, we are going to be at Florida, and we are going to be live with our award-winning podcast producer, bringing coffee conversations and interviews and all of that from the Florida show. So if you're going to be at the Florida show, please come by. We'll interview you. We want to have you, we'll have a great group of coffee conversations talking. Our panelists will be talking about what's happening in Florida. And there's on the roofing, on licensing, insurance side, there are some big things happening in Florida that we're going to talk about. So be sure to join us there. And this is Megan's fun thing. That's all, folks, for this season. So we'll be back next season. Zeb, Jess, and Maureen, again, thank you so much for being here. And Johns Manville, thank you for being sponsors.
Thank you.
Let's
be
Thanks,
proud.
everybody.
Proud. And last thing, but definitely not least, thank you to my co-host, Megan Ellsworth. You rock. And thank you for producing our podcast. You do just such an amazing job all year long in helping to bring coffee conversations to the industry.
Yay, glad to be here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Go love each other. See ya. Bye.
See ya.
Bye, everybody.